Welcome everyone to the special meeting of the Cumberland Town Council for May 29th, 2024. For the record, Madam Clerk, all the council members are present. I'm going to call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. And I'm going to go to the next item on the agenda, which is our Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next item on our agenda is communications. Does anyone, any council members have anything they want to communicate? Seeing none, we're going to go down to the next item under the old business. We have an ordinance for public hearing. We have ordinance 2408A. It's an ordinance amending the general fund for fiscal year 2023-2024. This is the first hearing, so there will be no vote. I am going to ask for a motion to accept 2408A in place of 24-08. Do I have a motion? So moved by Councilor Bolio. It is second by Councilor Shaw. All in favor to accept the A, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes by a vote of 7-0. The next item for this, I'm going to open a public hearing on this item at 6:02 p.m. And I will turn it over to Mayor Mutto.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the council. So resolution 240, excuse me, 08A is, every year, I always say it's not a question of if, it's a question of when there's going to be a budget amendment. So 2408A complies with the recently enacted levy, but there are some adjustments that are made during the year. So I said at the finance committee last night, I'll say it tonight, we're not looking for a vote currently. We do want you to go through the required public hearings. The main items on FY24 were due to the school housing aid being significantly less than budgeted, and that's reflected on the revenue side. And on the expense side, it is reflected on the debt service. There still was so the revenue side, it was 755,000 round numbers short. The expense side, 400 to the good. So we still had a $350,000 deficiency, if you will, to make up for. Other line items, I mean, severance line or severance/retainage was moved inside the departments. And then there's just some amendments to the budget that more accurately reflect the actual numbers as far as on both the revenue and the expense side. But effectively, when the dust settles and when if there are any subsequent amendments, they will match up to the levy resolution that was passed at the second meeting in April by the council. And I can take any questions. Thank you.
Council, if you wouldn't mind, Mayor, just indulge me. I want to read those changes into the record, and then I'll open it up for council, and then I'll go to the public. Okay. So just stand with me. So for total general revenue, it was adopted at $78,310,789. The proposed amendment is $78,150,939. Going to go down to total library receipts. The council adopted number was 373,926. The proposed amendment is 385,926. I'm sorry, 83. Thank you. Moving down, total state aid and grants. Council adopted $9,957,494. The proposed amendment is $9,481,557. Going down, I'm going to go to total revenue. $116,342,587. Moving to the expenditure side. Under total town departments, council adopted $13,445,990. The proposed amendment is $13,672,150. Going to total public safety. The council adopted $10,291,931. Proposed amendment is $10,298,973. Moving down to total administration. Council adopted $149,624. The proposed amendment is $161,624. The next change, we're going to total town general expenses. Total town general expenses. The council adopted $1,476,548. The proposed amendment is $1,235,865. Further down, total debt service. Council adopted $8,407,787. Proposed amendment is $7,912,183. Next number, we're going to total town. It was the council adopted, council adopted at $38,596,509. Proposed amendment is $38,105,425. Continue down to total school department. Council adopted was $78,371,865. Proposed amendment is $78,237,162. Total general fund. Council adopted was $116,968,374. Proposed amendment is $116,342,587. Thank you, Mayor. Any questions for the mayor on this, this ordinance under old business?
One, if I may.
Of course, Council Bolio.
Thank you. So you mentioned, Mayor, that you're not ready for a vote at this time, but when would we anticipate we would need to vote on this?
So the first quarter, clearly the biggest driver, at least on the revenue side in the town, is first quarter collection. It is due on May 30th or May 31st, whichever last day of the month is in May. So we're approaching that. So we generally do, I would say it will be in June at some point in time. It may be, it probably wouldn't be the 5th. I would suspect it would be second meeting in June, I think is, well, maybe that's being changed because it was the 19th, right? Is there a second meeting in June? There is not.
Not
a
right
second
now,
meeting?
unless you, I think we left it that unless you needed it. But right now,
So-
because of the holiday, we're out.
Okay, so understanding that, I think we would move the timeline up, and I'm not, is it on the June 5th docket for Republican? So we're gonna shoot for June 5th.
Thank you.
Sounds
Thank
like a
you.
deal. Anybody else for the mayor?
President.
Mr. Shaw.
So Mayor, last night at Finance, we discussed the community outreach section of both. Really, it came up, the Cumberland Fest of 23-24 budget would now be an appropriate time to make an amendment to that line item to see that the funds that were budgeted maybe get used by a couple other entities?
Yep, this would be an appropriate time, yes.
All right, so if it pleases the council, under that community outreach section where the grants, there was $2,500 set aside for Cumberland Fest. That obviously never happened. So it's just money that was sitting there, and I'm proposing that we move 2,000 of it to the Franklin Farm line item of the same section and 500 to the Cumberland Land Trust. So that they can claim it for the last budget. And of course, it's open for discussion, but that's what I'm proposing.
Thank you. So, we have an amendment, to move, funds from the, Cumberland Fest, which, is not gonna go on, I understand, to move the parcel. I think, correct. I'm sorry about that. So 2,000 to, Franklin Farm and another 500 of that to the Cumberland Land Trust. So, I will have to take, Madam Solicitor, are we gonna make an emotion to accept that as an amendment, or just do I need to make this a B?
You can amend
Okay,
that version.
so we will amend those two items. And, if there is no further discussion, I'll take the, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Last year in lieu of the Cumberland Fest, there was another event that was held. Where was that taken from? The money?
You know, that's a good question, Counselor. I don't remember on this portion of the budget, this is outside agencies. So that was an internal, it was a a town function. So we wouldn't be taking
It's not associated.
that appropriation towards a town sponsored function. So I'm sure that I shouldn't say I'm sure, but it's likely that it came out of the Recreation Program Fund.
Okay.
But it definitely didn't come out of, or it
Gotcha.
shouldn't
Okay.
have come out of this fund. So
Thank
thank
you.
you.
All right, thank you. So if there's no other discussion, I will take a motion to amend those two, line items under, this ordinance. So I got a motion by Counselor Shaw. Do I have a second? Second by Counselor McGill. All in favor to amend, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The, amendment to the ordinance passes by a vote of 7-0. Okay, so if there's no other questions on that particular item from the council, I am gonna go to the members of the public. Would anybody in the chamber like to discuss ordinance 24-08-A? Seeing none, I'm gonna move over to virtual. Is anybody have their hand up, Madam Clerk? No? Okay. So far, so good. So we're gonna close this public hearing at 6:14 PM. And again, there is no vote necessary, so I'm just gonna move on to the next item on the agenda. So just let me catch up here. Thank you. So the next item on our agenda is ordinance 24-15. We have an ordinance establishing the operating budget for the town of Cumberland, general fund for fiscal year 2024-2025. This is our second hearing, and it will be our first vote. So, but before I go on, I'm going to ask for a motion to accept 24-15A in place of 24-15. Do I have a motion to amend? Motion by Counselor Shaw, second by Counselor McGill. All in favor to amend, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the amendment passes by a vote of 7-0. Going to open the public hearing on this item. It's 6:15. And I'm going to read the doc, before I go to the mayor, I'm just going to read these numbers in, okay? Okay, we're gonna go to total revenue, general revenue. It was adopted in 2024 at 78,310,789. Proposed for 2025 is 80,431,567. Going down to total library receipts. Was adopted in 2024 at 373,926. Proposed by the mayor at $380,311. We're going to school receipts. Total adopted in 2024 was 28,326,165. Proposed by the mayor for 2025 is $29,763,407. Going down to total state aid and grants. It was adopted in 2024 at $9,957,494. The mayor proposed $9,098,493. Total revenue was adopted at $116,968,374. Mayor proposed $119,673,778. Going to the expenditure side. We're going down to total town departments. Adopted in 2024, it was 13,445,990. Proposed for 2025 is $14,369,099. Total public safety. Adopted in 2024 was $10,291,931. Proposed for 2025 is $10,613,534. Total administration under information technology, the budget was 2024 adopted was $149,624. Mayor proposed for 2025 is $186,232. Going down to total fringe. Adopted budget for 2024 was $4,566,753. Mayor proposed for 2025, $5,019,531. Moving down to total town council, was adopted in 2024 at $123,621. Proposed for 2025 is $122,621. Total boards and commissions. Was adopted in 2024 at 27,756. Proposed for 2025, 27,755. Is that correct? Next, we're going to total community outreach. Was adopted in 2024 at $106,500. Mayor proposed for 2025 is $103,000. Moving down to total town general expenses. Adopted in 2024 was $1,476,548. Proposed for 2025 is $1,135,302. Total debt service. Adopted 2024 was $8,407,787. Mayor proposed for 2025, $7,554,434. Going down to total town, adopted in 2024 was $38,596,509. Mayor proposed for 2025 is $39,131,507. Going down to total school department, adopted for 2024 was $78,371,865. Mayor proposed 2025, $80,542,271. Total general fund adopted 2024 was $116,968,374. Proposal for the mayor is $119,673,778. Okay. With that done, Mayor, did you want to comment on this? I know we've had 2 meetings on this already, so.
Yep, thank you, Mr. President and members of the council. So, just a quick overview prior to speaking to the amendment. Clearly, the driver in FY 25, as I've explained a few times, is the school construction payment and the school housing aid offset, which is somewhat delayed. So presenting a dilemma, if you will, or a strategy for FY 25. There's a catch-up payment that would be coming subsequently, but for this year, that was the driver, and what we had proposed was to take more money from the debt service fund, which was going to necessitate actually funding, taking some from another fund, putting it into the debt service fund, and then putting it back once the catch-up payment occurred. So what you see tonight does not change the total budget, but in discussions with the school department, and obviously this is the year that we are proposing, been discussed for many, many years. We are proposing that the school department use some of its fund balance to bridge the gap for FY 25. And so subsequently, and they have agreed to do that. But upon thinking of ways that might be more appropriate, instead of using their fund balance to use it towards operating expenses, this amendment actually funds it at the level that the superintendent proposed to the school committee in the maintenance of effort, uses the fund balance to then offset our debt service fund to pay for the capital improvement of the school construction. So the trade-off there is that the maintenance of effort does, if you left it as it was initially proposed, that maintenance of effort would not have increased. They would just be spending that from the fund balance. And so recognizing the advancements of the school department, being a top 5 district, their ability that they have participated since I've been here just about every year in moves made to offset expenses inside the overall budget and therefore lower the levy and the property tax encumbrance. So recognizing all those factors, that's what this proposal does. You'll notice that it does not change the total amount of the budget, but effectively, instead of it going into the operating budget, some accounting that obviously would have to occur there, but that portion of the fund balance, which is $488,775, would go towards paying the payment on the school construction. And so that's what you see there. You see on the revenue side, an increase on the appropriation from school surplus in the amount of 488,775. You see the debt service fund transfer reduced by the 488,775. And then on the expense side, you see the maintenance of effort up 488,775. And the debt service, school bonds, debt interest down by the same amount of money. So it's just more appropriate when you can to use fund balance towards a capital expense. So it checks that box, and it does put on the maintenance of effort, the request that the superintendent put in front of the school department. The school department did increase that. But we're going to leave that remaining issue in the capable hands of the superintendent and the school committee. And I can take any questions.
Thank you, Mayor. Any questions for the mayor on this? Hearing none. Of course, Mr. Mativia.
Thank you. Mayor, with the maintenance of effort, next year, I'm assuming that you thought about this, it's not going to cause any problems with us being able to continue funding the maintenance of effort plus the debt service?
I
From the
think
council.
that the reality is funding the associated debt service for school construction and still maintaining the efforts inside teaching and learning inside the classroom will always be a matter that all sides will be deliberating here in Cumberland for the foreseeable future. So I think this is a recognition of those improvements. It's a recognition of the importance of those improvements and achievements. And, does it significantly impact next year? Actually, next year, it will require some discipline, because when the school housing aid comes in at a number that far exceeds what you have in this year's budget, it's going to require some discipline not to use it all. So, but I believe it is it is an appropriate amendment based on all the factors that are in front of us, and the fact that it is important in Cumberland. We've demonstrated that, and the achievements that have been forthcoming, we certainly would want to keep them in place. So, but it will always be a challenge, especially with any new construction with BF Norton. This is not a challenge that's going to go away.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none from the council, I'm going to go to the members of the public. If anybody in the audience would like to speak on this ordinance? Hearing none, I'm going to go virtual. Okay. Seeing nobody, I am going to close the public hearing at 6:29 PM.
Can I ask one question?
Of course.
Yeah, sorry,
Counselor Bolio.
right under the wire.
No, you're
Um,
good.
Question for the mayor on the department goals. So if we approve the ordinance, in the next few weeks, how does the council contribute to the adoption or the support of the goals? So pick any department, they typically have one or two goals. What if we don't agree with the goals? How does that influence the budget?
Well, you might need to be a little more specific on that, but
Sure,
I mean,
I'll pick one.
okay.
So goal number one for OCYL is expand programming. What I'd rather see is that they find alternate funding sources. Because for years, it was supposed to be a zero cost. We know that's not true. I'd rather see them focus their efforts on increasing grant funding to help offset the costs.
Right, so for OCYL inside a general fund budget to increase their programming and ask for that to come out of the general fund, that would require the council to approve that. So you're approving inside this ordinance, the maximum amount that can be spent in each of those individual departments. And for any of those departments to go over would require your approval at a subsequent budget, amendment. So in
So-
that department, those programs could be funded outside the general fund, so which you're aware of.
I am.
So if those were funded outside the general fund and you still had an issue with that, then that would require something other than discussion inside a budget hearing. I think, there's, just like one of the budgets that's in front of you tonight is, the recreation fund. There are other program funds inside the town of Cumberland's, finances, and OCYL is one of them. So, it's not really a budget discussion. It's probably more a policy discussion about how you'd like to see those funds, utilized. But it's not really under 24-15A. And I don't know if I'm confusing that or I'm making that clear. I have no idea.
Nope, I think you are. So thank you for that.
I think on other goals, there's only so many dollars that can be spent in the overall spending package of the town. And when you have voter approved school bonds and that construction, that makes it really, 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 really tight to have further expansion of any other department or departments until you reach that, high watermark, if you will. And I think I explained it the other night. There's some debt service that is being retired. There's some, there's a sizable master lease. There's other debt service. So you really need to get to 2027 though, for that to happen. And so that it's over the next 2 budget years, it's going to require some discipline and some, like I say, if you're going to take from one fund, you need to put it back. It's all possible. It's all in the, it's all there, but you're going to have to execute it. There's not a lot of room for significant expenditures inside individual departments until that happens. There's just the reality, and staying within the local tax rate cap and state levy caps.
Thank you. I'd also add, as we're expanding our community enrichment, which I do support, I want to be certain we're not, that we're best providing programming without duplicating services. And if services could be provided by alternate departments, whether it was the library or other, I think we should investigate that over the year. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you're speaking about the Emerald building, that is the intent. There will be partners and there'll be town department partners in that. We don't anticipate, and there's nothing intended to have hired agencies, be responsible for the programming inside that building.
Thank you, Council. One question.
Council Bradley.
What are our plans with the former police station?
So those are TBD, but that is one of the most asked questions that we do get. I think it would not be wise or appropriate right now to put we had thought about it, but you really need to put a town referendum question on the ballot there are some municipal buildings that are going to require some, requiring them now. So there needs to be a plan developed. There's multiple ideas that have been floated around for that property. We do anticipate, and it may happen inside this year, is to actually do, like a structural analysis of that building to see if there's something that could be parts of it or some of it that could be salvaged, but or whether or not that's a tear down, but it represents a town asset that we do think has value for a variety of reasons in the near future. In speaking with our financial advisors, didn't think that that this year would be, the year to put that on the ballot.
So one other question to that, we did have storm damage to that. Did we do anything with FEMA on that or try to?
The damage inside that building, predated. I'm not aware of any damage that occurred due to the storms. But there certainly was some damage inside that building due to, water entering the building. That it's not, to my knowledge, it was not related to the storms. I mean, doesn't mean it wasn't, but I think I would know if, and we would have submitted a claim if we were aware.
Ms. Boland.
Just one follow-up.
Yeah.
Do we know the condition of the roof on the building? And is there a plan within the facilities budget to make any repairs if necessary? What I've understood is the roof tiles are falling off.
I don't know the actual answer to that question. I mean, we know that there's been water that's entered the building and it has caused some damage. As to the extent, I don't know. As I said, we had bandied about having an assessment done on the building. Have not done it to this point. There's a municipal use potential. There's a school department potential use as a public safety potential use there. So it's just a question of we really don't know at the moment. As I said, I think you probably see an assessment done, but as to actually funding it, it is not something we would have put it in front of you but I do think that it's imminent that you will have a referendum question in front of you in the not too distant future to address that as well as some other municipal building needs.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sure, Councilor Shaw.
Thanks, President. So before we move on with the vote on the budget, this particular budget, I would like to make the same amendment as we did with the 324 budget, and that's moving the Cumberland Fest money, since there's no Cumberland Fest this year. That was proposed 2,000 to the Franklin Farm, 500 to the Land Trust. And a question for the one that we just did, solicitor, at what point do they have for the previous one that we haven't voted on yet for that budget? When is the deadline to, put in for that money? Is it the end of the next month or?
No. So both the Franklin Farm and the Land Trust have received their appropriations. We would just reach out to them and tell them that there's been an amendment, and it's always best to expend those before June 30th, but it's not an absolute prerequisite, but actually we'll make sure it does happen.
Now, that's June 30th. That's what I was looking at. So just from a general thing, because I never asked that before. Thanks.
Councilor Brad. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, hand on the mic. Okay. Any other further comments, council, before I close this public hearing? I'm going to close the public hearing at 6:40. And if there's no other discussion, I will take a motion to approve as amended 24-15A.
Well, I think we have to take action on
Oh, okay.
my proposal
You're
first.
Correct, I'm so sorry. So, to start, Kate, I will take a motion to amend 24-15A, adding $2,000 to Franklin Farm and 500 to the Cumberland Land Trust. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Motion by Counselor Short. Oh, and I'm sorry, Mayor, just remove the money from the Cumberland Fest line item?
Right, so the
Okay.
amendment would be to lower Cumberland Fest from 2,500 to 0, Land Trust increase from 1,000 to
Okay.
1,500, and Franklin Farm from 15,000 to 17,000.
Correct. Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion.
So I will take a motion by Counselor Shore on that amendment. Do I have a second? Second by Counselor McGill. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The amendment passes by a vote of 7-0, and I will now take a motion to approve 24-15A as amended. Motion by Counselor Shore, second by Counselor McGill, and I'll go to the roll call vote. Counselor Schmidt,
Yes.
Counselor Bolio,
Yes.
Counselor Mativian,
Yes.
Counselor Shore.
Yes.
Counselor McGill.
Yes.
Counselor Bradley. And the chair will vote yes. The budget passes, excuse me, the ordinance passes by a vote of 6-1 with Counselor Bradley in the negative.
Mr. President,
Yes,
I just didn't hear.
Impact.
impact fees.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda. For public hearing, we have ordinance 24-16A. We have an ordinance establishing an operating budget for the town of Cumberland's Water Department for fiscal year 2024-2025. This will also be the second hearing in the first vote. Before we open the public hearing, I'd like to ask for a motion to accept 24-16A in place of 24-16. Do I have a motion? So moved by Counselor Mativian, second by Counselor McGill. All in favor, will men say aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it is approved by a vote of 7-0. Let me just read these items into the docket.
President?
Yeah.
Can you hold for a minute?
What? Yeah, it's right here. After a motion is- Right here, I got it handwritten. And water.
We just have a question because the version on Clark Base does not have an A on it. That, I mean, you can vote on what's before you, but it would, maybe you could just explain what the changes were. And then it'll get attached to Clark Base shortly.
Madam Solicitor, before I read these items in, do we need from the mayor, we need an explanation on this? Or can I continue and read the items?
I can be honest, Mr. President, I don't know what the A version is. If I submitted it, I distinctly don't remember submitting it. That, the A? I don't remember sending an amendment to the water fund. The same number.
Mayor, last night, we got two versions of the rec at the finance meeting. We didn't get a water one last night. Just for
Well,
clarification.
All I'm saying is that the 20 2416 and the 2416A are the same exact number. So, and I could be mistaken, so no disrespect, but it's exactly 7,037,945. And I don't see a change in the revenue side, and I don't have a recollection of changing it anyway. So I think 2416A is the exact,
I have
same
the
thing
same,
as
I don't
20.
have a change on this either.
I think 2416A is same as 2416, which I'm fine with.
Okay, confusion was, I sent Sandra one that said, we just fixed the word adjusted to say adopted. It shouldn't have been an A version. It was just changing the word adjusted to adopted.
Not a problem. So with that said, can I go back and take a motion to remove A?
Yeah, I would, you're not working with an A version, so. And then Sandra doesn't have to. I would just, was the motion voted on?
Yes, it was voted on 7-0.
Okay, so whoever made the motion can withdraw their motion.
Can you, Council Mativia, withdraw your motion to amend, 24-16?
And whoever seconded it, withdraw their second.
I got a motion to remove by Council Mativia, and it was second by Council McGill. Council McGill is also, second the removal.
That'll do it.
Okay, so now we're going back to the original for a public hearing. We are at now 24-16. Thank you, Solicitor. And I'm gonna, before we go to the public hearing, I'm gonna just read these numbers in for the, an ordinance establishing the operating budget for the Town of Cumberland's Water Department, fiscal year 24-25. We have total revenues. It's the request was $7,037,945. Proposed by the mayor, $7,037,945. Total expenditures. Department request is $7,042,945. Proposed by the mayor, $7,037,945. I'm going to open the public hearing at 6:48. Does, Mayor, you want to comment on the water side, or no changes? So
No, I mean, I'm not aware of any changes. This major changes you'll notice on the expense side is the deficit reduction line, as I explained a couple times in recent memory, the water department, the general fund picked up some of the water department expenses, and so the rates that have been recently passed by council in the budget in front of you starts to repay the general fund for the expenses that they shouldn't have, had to bear. But this has happened in the past as well. So that's the major change in the in 24-16. Thank you.
thank you. And again, I just for the record, Senator, if you got, I opened the public hearing at 6:49. Any questions for the mayor on the water department budget?
President,
Mr. Shaw?
just for clarification on a question that I had brought up last night, I did speak to Romeo today in regards to the pump being down, and it has been down for 4 weeks at Manville Hill for maintenance, which was budgeted and planned for in the current budget, and hope to be online within the next week and a half. So thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other questions for the mayor on this water department's budget? There's no comment from the council. I'm going to go to the members of the public. Anybody in the chamber would like to address this item, this ordinance? Seeing none, I'll go virtual. Nobody joining us, so I'm gonna close the public hearing at 6:50. And I'll take, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Bradley.
Question. Mayor, is there any paving going through the water department? I see on the list that was in the breeze, we're doing from Angel Road to the 295 overpass on Lee Road. What was that?
We are doing that, yes.
What about the other part that was dug up 6, 7 years ago by the water department that was supposed to be paved
That is being paid as well.
on the other side of the overpass?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, good. No further questions. Again, I close the public hearing at 6:50, and I'll take a motion to approve. So moved by Counselor Shaw, second by Counselor McGill. And we'll go to the roll call. Counselor Schmidt,
Yes.
Counselor Bolio,
Yes.
Counselor Mativia,
Yes.
Counselor Shaw, Counselor McGill,
Yes.
Counselor Bradley. The ordinance passes by a vote of 6-1 with Mr. Bradley in the negative. Next item on our agenda. We have ordinance 24-17. It's an ordinance establishing the operating budget for the town of Cumberland Sewer Department for fiscal year 2024-2025. It is a second hearing and first vote as well. Before I open the public hearing, I'm just going to read everything into the record here. On the sewer department, adjusted budget for 2024 was $583,794. Proposed by the mayor for 2025 is $840,104. Moving down to the expenditures. The adopted 2024 was, just bear with me, it's cut off at the bottom. I'm just gonna go online and get that. Okay, so total expenditures adopted was $583,794. Proposed 2025 is $840,104. Thank you. Okay, with that said, going to open the public hearing. Is anybody at 6:54? And May, did you have any comment on this?
Yep, thanks, Mr. President, members of council. So you can see, well, we've discussed in the past that we'd like to, we're in the process of making sewer fund an actual legitimate enterprise fund. You will notice that the increases, there is a sewer rate study that will be presented shortly in front of the council. You'll notice that the big adds are under the infrastructure improvement fund and some small or 71.5 on debt service that would be associated with some much needed repairs inside this department. I did mention last evening, I think, we do have a congressional earmark to try to offset the expenses of one of the projects that we know needs to be done. So we'll keep our fingers crossed on that. But the main impetus here is that there's infrastructure improvements that need to be made, and they should be borne by the users of the system. And so we're going to legitimize this as an enterprise fund. And as I said, part of that process is to have a sewer rate study done prior, and you will see that shortly. And I can take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Is any questions for the mayor on the sewer? Councilor Shaw?
This might be a question for Mr. Duarte, seen him in the chambers. Because with the infrastructure improvement fund, is there any projects relating to the Cumberland Hill area or around the quarry that have come up in the past year due to blasting or whatever that the sewer lines themselves or water's dealing with it on their end. I'm just curious on the sewer end.
We do not. We don't have anything, we've not heard of anything that's affecting, the sewer mains in that area.
Okay, thank you.
Of course, Mr. McGill.
Just one question. On sewer insurance things, it more than doubled from 15,000 to 40,000. What's the drive behind that?
So we have one line item for premiums. Another one is if we go over certain amounts, the town has to kick in the balance of it. This year, if you notice, there was quite a bit that we had to pay. This results from occasionally there's a sewer backup somewhere in the system. It's going to happen. And they've been very expensive recently. So we've noticed even from prior years that we've had these occurrences. It's kind of cyclical. So one year maybe 15,000 or less. Recently, we've been seeing higher expenditures in that line item because the claims have been substantially higher. We've had $80,000 claims that they've received. We have $40,000 claims, sewerage going into inside of properties and so forth. Of which, when we present to you the sewer rate study and so forth, you're going to see that there's expenditures that we want to do, capital expenditures on a very old part of town, the Ashton Mills and the Berkeley Village. You know, these are about 140-year-old mains that are constantly backing up into people's homes, and we've having to pay large claims. So that's why you see that line item going up a little bit more.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McGill. Any other questions from the council on this? Of course, Councilor Bradley.
Was to do but we're requiring a backflow preventer now
We are,
when they hook in, which would advert some of that.
of course.
Thank you. Any other questions? So does anybody in the chamber would like to address this ordinance? Seeing none, anybody joining us virtually would like to speak on this ordinance? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to take, and no further discussion, I'm going to close the public hearing at 6:58, and I'll take a motion to approve. So moved by Councilor Shaw, second by Councilor McGill. Roll call vote, Councilor Schmidt,
Yes.
Councilor Bolio,
Yes.
Councilor Mativia,
Yes.
Councilor Shaw,
Yes.
Councilor McGill,
Yes.
Councilor Bradley. Yep. So the ordinance passes by a vote of 6-1 with Councilor Bradley in the negative. Next item on our agenda for public hearing is ordinance 24-18. We have an ordinance establishing the operating budget for the town of Cumberland's Recreation Fund for fiscal year 2024-2025. Just going to read these in the record. Total revenues adopted in 2024 was $212,800. Proposed 2025 is $180,300. Total expenditures adopted for 2024 was $212,800. Proposed by the mayor, 2025, $180,300. I'm just gonna open the public hearing now. 7 o'clock. Mayor, did you have any comment on recreation?
I'm willing to, Mr. Crowley may be on Zoom, I'm not sure, he's not. Okay, so, you know, this, I think I mentioned it not somewhere earlier this evening, this is a program fund. And so if the revenues don't come in, the expenses, you know, follow accordingly. So I can't speak to exactly all of Mr. Crowley's reasonings for the numbers that are in front of you. But effectively, that's really, they're subject to change based on the fluctuation of actually who participates in the event and who doesn't. I did ask him, I know Councilman Shaw had a question on the other payroll, right? There was a line item.
Yeah, it was the first one on the expenditures, other programs, payroll.
Yeah. So I did reach out and Mr. Corley had told me that he'd be on the Zoom to answer that question. So he is not, and I don't have an answer to that question.
Mr. President.
Yes.
There's also what came up today is kind of a follow-up to the previous amendment that was before us last night at finance. The with the increase in the rental recreation and 16 to 16,000 that was originally, I think, 3. He has another line item up above that says ball field rentals recreation for 13,000. So I'm not too sure. I would like to know if that was, if that is this one in the same. So now he's expecting revenue of 29,000, where we know as of date now we're at 17.5, I think is what you said.
No, nope. The currently, why there's 2 line items, I'm not going to speak to that, but currently using those numbers, that would be budgeted at 29,000 and year to date is over 30.
Oh, I thought you had told me 17.
It's 17 on the one that says 16.
So
On
I
the
get,
one that says 13, it's over 13.
yeah, I appreciate you saying that because I had a backup question in case that was the answer. Then above that is the Tucker Field miscellaneous revenue, which has 0. So I'm curious if that was intentionally put in there for the rental of Tucker, specifically.
Well, see, I think if you can see that hasn't been in, it wasn't in 20, wasn't in.
Correct.
Then, we moved it into the general fund. I mean, this is not the only program fund that the town of Cumberland has, but for some reason it makes the budget hearings. Not really sure why. Not really sure why.
Yeah,
There's a senior program fund, there's an OCWL program fund, there's a recreation program fund, but this one is here. And clearly there's line items here that have been zeroed that stay in there. And if you were to look at the FY 24 budget, that sits at a budget of 212,800 as of May 29th, 2024, that number's closer to 132,000. So with expenses that are still less than 132,000. So in many respects, this kind of gives you an idea of what's happening.
Yeah.
But to really kind of understand exactly how that flows in and out, I do believe that, I'm not sure if it's in the packet or not, but it's certainly available. And so there's, I don't know how to, it's kind of like, it's here for, just to give you an idea what's inside the program fund and what the recreation department does.
sure.
But as far as actually zeroing in on every activity and every dollar that goes in and goes out, that's available to you and is part of the town's finance reporting system. But as far as a budget,
It's
it
not,
could
it's
be a
not-
lot, it could be a lot tighter.
Yeah, no, I get that. And I have nothing against the actual, the programs themselves. It goes back to what was initially supposed to happen with the whole Tucker
Well, but
area.
what happened when this got moved into the general fund, if it returned, if revenues exceeded the expenses, it went to the general fund balance.
Mhm.
Now it does not. So if this fund does return a surplus,
Mhm.
it's in that, it stays inside the program fund and is expended on recreation. It cannot be expended on other expenditures. So that's the benefit of it not being in the general fund. Like I said, I'm not sure why it is.
Do
it is-
we,
It
do
is,
we,
it is looked at differently than other ones, but you have access to that and the financial statements that the audit that's done delineates what those numbers are.
with the surplus as well?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, and I mean, if it's in here, it's in here. And like I said before, we're gonna, it's gonna make me look at it and ask questions like it did about the $16,000 now versus the 3,000 it was. I mean, obviously something was changed by me asking a question. So I'm gonna ask the question. If it-
No, I'm with you on that. I just struggle whether or not this is an exercise that is outside really a, a budget discussion, but that being said, it's in front of you. And so when it's in front of you, you gotta ask the question.
Yeah.
So I agree.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, in looking at this, this was an A. All right, so we gotta take a motion to accept or to accept 24-18A in place of 24-A. Can I have that motion? So moved by Counselor Shaw, second. Second by Counselor McGill. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? The A is accepted by a vote of 7-0. The totals, expenditures, and revenue is the same, so there's no change there. So we are now working with 24-18A. Yes. Thank you. Can you put Mr. Crowley on, please?
Hello?
Thank you for joining us, Director. Does anybody have any questions for the Director? Mr. Shaw.
Hey, Mike, thanks for
Hello.
joining. I just wanted to know with the other programs payroll, why it was reduced by 20,000. What was that? What was that in reference to?
That was reference to the dance program, so it's all under the dance program at this point.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear him.
It's all under the dance program for instructors, for other payroll. That's the only other payroll I have at this point. And summer camp is under a separate group.
So you have $4,000 for other programs payroll right now, and you got $24,000 for dance. So you haven't, so you're saying, what's the 4,000 for now?
That's for any other programs that we decide to do during the year. If we decide to do
Okay.
some, right now, I mean, I've been lucky. I mean, I'm doing a program tonight, run all by volunteers. That's not, sometimes that's not always the case. So if I have to have that in the budget just to, if we have to pay somebody to help out, then we're gonna have to pay somebody. But I might try to do it all with volunteers with most of our programs we do.
Okay. Oh, that's cool. I appreciate the answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the council? Hearing none, I will go to the chamber. Would anybody like to comment on the recreation on 24-18A, ordinance establishing the recreation fund? Seeing none in the chamber, I'll go virtual. Okay, I have no one joining us virtual, so I will close this public hearing at 7:09. And I will take a motion to approve. Motion by Counselor Shaw. Do I have a second? Second by Counselor McGill. Roll call vote, please. Counselor Schmidt,
Yes.
Counselor Boleo,
Yes.
Counselor Mativia,
Yes.
Counselor Shaw, Counselor McGill,
Yes.
and Counselor Bradley. The recreation budget passes by a vote of 7-0. Okay, next item on our agenda is public comment. Would anyone in the chamber like to address the council on any matter? Seeing none, I'll go virtual. Would anybody like to join us virtually on any topic of their choosing? Okay, I'm going to move on to the next item. We have adjournment. I will take a motion to adjourn at 7:09. Motion by Counselor Shaw, and a second by Counselor McGill. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned at 7:09 by a vote of 7-0. Thank you, everyone.